We've heard about the circle of life, but what about the life cycle of a product? So, life cycle assessment is this tool that companies hire specialists to do for their product to examine its full environmental impact from its very beginning to its inevitable end. This is a more educated way to examine a product's footprint than just looking at one trait it has with no context. But here we're going to use this environmental analysis a little differently. More on that later. First, I want to give you a little background on what life cycle assessment is. When examining a product, the specialists first map out the actual life cycle, starting with raw material extraction, manufacturing and processing, transportation, usage and retail, and ending on waste disposal. This product life cycle is very grimly named from cradle to grave. For each stage in the life cycle, inputs and outputs are measured. This includes water, energy, and materials as inputs, and pollution usually as outputs, meaning CO2 equivalent gases, water-soluble chemicals, and so on. Each stage gets this treatment separately to get a full picture, and the results might be surprising. For instance, a single-use plastic cup might be more environmentally friendly than a porcelain mug because of the incredibly high energy expenditure to fire the clay and its relatively brittle nature. Many years ago, I was taking an environmental class, and my teacher said that when considering the life cycle of a plastic cup versus a porcelain mug, we need to use the mug 6,000 times to justify the energy expenditure. A similar situation happens when considering single-use paper products. When doing an in-depth analysis, we might find out that single-use plastic might just win out because paper products require more energy to produce the raw materials, more energy to manufacture, the products are heavier, less structurally sound, and therefore bulkier in comparison to plastic products. So they might take more space in transportation, requiring more transportation per unit, taking up more space on shelves and storage. That's an environmental issue as well. And yes, it's possible to recycle paper, but the water and energy expenditure is immense in the recycling process alone. When considering the entire life cycle, the biodegradability of paper might not save it from having a larger environmental footprint. This is all a tangent. I haven't even started explaining what the actual point of this video is. This was a recurrent theme while writing the script. Get to it, VPM. When examining the entire life cycle, it becomes clear that at every stage the product is a different thing. The constituents of the product might be similar or even the same, but the shape, the traits, the context, all those are very different. The product is a different thing with different traits. It's not the same thing throughout its life. The first stage of a paper cup cycle is a tree. A tree is not yet a paper cup. We could do some mental gymnastics and find a tree that secretes some kind of liquid, or a tree that has big curly leaves that can catch rainwater or something. I hate those definition bending exercises, by the way. But what would be the point of it in this case? We are not trying to see if a tree can perform some functions of a cup. We're trying to see if a tree has all the properties of a cup, and it doesn't. Neither the most evident traits like shape and living status, nor the more deep ones like purpose and function. A tree and a cup are two different things. And to become a cup, the tree needs to have processes done to it. It's cut down, mulched, soaked, dried, mulched again probably, chemically treated, soaked some more, blah blah blah, resulting in a thin paper coated with a thin layer of plastic, cut into a shape and glued. This takes time, energy, inputs, and has outputs, which are less important to my point, to which I'm definitely going to get to, maybe. Whether the tree is part of the life cycle of a paper cup or not, it has a life cycle on its own. The processes are less intervening and man-made, but the tree's journey starts with a seed, and the seed is not a tree. It doesn't have the properties of the tree, not yet. There's a temporal component accompanied by processes. Therefore, these two things should be viewed as different things within a life cycle, not completely separate. But treating a seed as if it was a tree would be coming from a confused place. Treating a seed for what it might become one day is misguided. It has different properties and needs, and thus should be treated for what it is now at this time. It's almost a case of mistaken identity to act as if a seed and a tree are the same thing, right? Mammals also have life cycles. Fertilized egg, several stages of fetus, newborn baby, a mishmash of difficult to separate stages of childhood and pre-adulthood, and then adulthood, old age, and death. The cycle continues into stages of decomposition of a body, a theoretical stage these days due to burial traditions. But thinking of what happens to a mammal after death is part of the death inputs and outputs calculations, I think. The way the landfill stage of a paper cup would be relevant to its death stage. So everything and everybody goes through stages, and I think that they should be considered a different thing at every stage. Again, not completely different. They lead one to another, but all stages are not the same thing. I think it helps to think like this to realize that different stages have different properties. Otherwise, in some scenarios, we might smoosh that timeline to view a thing or a being as what it has the potential to be one day, or what it was once, or what it's even destined to be, and assign traits of a tree to a seed, or of an adult to a child. And I hope I don't need to spell out why that's problematic. My point is, people who refer to cows as tasty are highly confused. They see the cow as already a killed, butchered and prepared product, but the living, feeling, thinking cow in this video hasn't gotten there yet, and in cases of sanctuary cows, they are likely to never get there. It's almost delusional and singular, because they wouldn't confuse sperm, an earlier stage, or rotting flesh, a later stage, to be tasty the way steak is. I think, maybe. It's smooshing of a timeline and confusion of one stage with another in a life cycle of a being or a product. And, let's face it, farmed animals are in a product life cycle. This is where we are trying to liberate them from, because whenever sentient being is an ingredient of a product life cycle, they seem to not be considered as having their own life cycle. That said, we shouldn't forget the entire life cycle completely in our moral considerations. After all, life cycle assessment is an important tool that can be used to measure environmental footprint, or even moral footprint. We can totally point out that this steak on somebody's plate is a product of an immoral act, when we know that it came from rights violations, as is true virtually in 99.99% of cases, approaching 100%. My point is that we just shouldn't assign properties to a different stage of life to the current stage. Flesh is no longer sentient. A sentient being is not yet a steak. I do hope my reasoning is clear. What you definitely must do is not confuse the like button of this video with the dead space under that button, and treat the like button the way it should be treated. It's there to be pushed. Subscribe and share while you are wandering around that area, and I'll see you next time.